Hello, my name is Jean-Pierre Jeunet. I'm the director of Alien Resurrection.
Hi, I'm Dominique Pinon. I played Vries, the guy on the wheelchair.
And I'm Hervé Schned, the editor.
My name is Sylvain, and I was a storyboard artist and a concept artist on Alien Resurrection. This was designed, composed, shot almost entirely, and never used because we couldn't complete it for budgetary reasons. But initially, in the first opening of the film, we looked at the mouth of an insect. Except we didn't know it was an insect. We mistake it for an alien creature. And the camera backs up and actually reveals a little bug. And in one camera move, as it keeps on backing up, we see a finger crushing that insect and sticking the insect into a straw and splattering that insect against the glass as we recede. And we go all the way back into outer space and actually reveal a giant spaceship, which is where the story begins.
I remember especially about the main credits because when I arrived in LA, I was waiting for an answer from the studio. You can imagine a poor French guy like me. I was very scared, and I remember I was in a hotel waiting for the answer, and I didn't sleep because of jet lag and because I was scared. And I remember I thought, okay, to prove to myself I am able to make this film, I have to find a good idea for the main credit, for the first shot. And immediately I found the story of the guy alone in a big spaceship with the milkshake, with the pipe, you know, and he scratches the insects, he puts in the pipe, he blows the insect on the camera. And I was very happy about this idea. I told this idea to the studio and they were very happy too. And we began to work on it, but it was very, very, very expensive. And one day my line producer told me, if you could find another idea because we have no enough money to finish this idea. And in fact, this is a secret, but I was pretty relieved because in fact, I think it was a little bit too funny for the beginning of Alien. And I didn't say anything to the people. I said, what, you want to cut my idea? But in fact, I was very happy and I prefer the credit we have now.
This is a model, and at this time we hesitated about to use CGI or models for the spaceships. And Pitoff preferred to use models. Maybe it was one of the last films with spaceships in model.
Well, that was very impressive. I came once on the set where you shot the models, and it was really big.
Yeah, not really big. It's never enough big. And and Pitoff made a lot of paths, and he mixed the different paths.
Pitoff, is that making fun of Americans the way those two soldiers are chewing gum?
Yeah, sort of. It's very Jeunet and just really in sync. And it's yes, it's.
Pitoff, is that making fun of Americans the way those two soldiers are chewing gum?
Yeah, sort of. It's very Jeunet and just really in sync. And it's yes, it's a big fun.
Making fun of Americans.
Tom Woodruff and Alec Gillis made this fake Sigourney. It was a real pleasure to work with this guy.
Here's our first shot. The body of this little girl was based on photographs that Sigourney sent us of herself as a child, and then we worked those photographs into a sculpture based on a life cast of an actress that casting agent got for us.
Look at this beautiful morph.
Oh yes, indeed.
And we morphed the body of this little girl was based on photographs that Sigourney sent us of herself as a child, and then we worked those photographs into a sculpture based on a life cast of an actress that casting agent got for us.
Look at this beautiful morph.
Oh yes, indeed.
And we morphed to Sigourney as an adult, which, interestingly enough, that face looks an awful lot like the way she looked in Alien 3 when we took a life cast of her.
That's right. And we used a body double to cast the body, didn't we? This is the surgery scene. That was a nice...
To Sigourney as an adult, which, interestingly enough, that face looks an awful lot like the way she looked in Alien 3 when we took a life cast of her.
That's right. And we used a body double to cast the body, didn't we? This is the surgery scene. That was a nice...
To Sigourney as an adult, which, interestingly enough, that face looks an awful lot like the way she looked in Alien 3 when we took a life cast of her.
That's right. And we used a body double to cast the body, didn't we? This is the surgery scene. That was a nice little mechanical chest. There may have been some digital help there. I'm not sure.
Yeah, the laser beam is digital, so it's part of my stuff as a second unit director.
That's right. And this was a fun little surgery scene with some of the tissue, interactive tissue. Silicone chest that was sort of laid on top of Sigourney. I love the look of this. And Darius Kanji did a great job. The way the slime looks in this movie is so kind of, it's almost metallic looking. It's got such a beautiful reflectivity. Or see that? Isn't that great?
I love this shot. It's really, really disgusting. You know,
Yes.
Wow, how it's
and then the
pumped up.
pop, they had pops.
And then we had a larger size for this close-up because they had to end up making some oversized pinchers to hold it as well. But it gave us the detail that we needed to be able to articulate the face and have the head extrude from that silicone sheath.
Nigel Phelps, the production designer, worked a lot with Darius Kanji, the DP. They worked together during the preparation. It was very important for Darius to have some sets with the light included in the set because, you know, this is some small corridor. It's very, very small, very tight, and it was very important to include the light.
Excellent work.
Frequently, Darius would come down to the set as it was being built, and Nigel would explain some of his intentions, and Darius would make suggestions, and they would create opportunities for lighting, basically. They were like two siblings plotting, and it works extremely well, actually. This was actually a tunnel. This is actually, you can see the floor on one end where the light is glowing, and this was actually just a vertical tunnel which was stood straight to make it into a siblings plotting, and it works extremely well, actually. This was actually a tunnel. This is actually, you can see the floor on one end where the light is glowing, and this was actually just a vertical tunnel which was stood straight to make it into a siblings plotting, and it works extremely well, actually.
I love this scene. It's very different with the other aliens, and Sigourney loved to do that. And she was almost naked when we shot. She is very courageous. She tries everything. She is ready to do everything, all the time.
So this is a set that was reused, but in this instance, this is the birthing room for Ripley. She's actually a very symbolic and beautiful, almost religious image of her coming to life. This is something that was designed by Darius and Jean-Pierre. They kind of dreamt it up and shot it quite late in the day, actually. And it's actually very stunning. It's quite beautiful. What we're looking at in terms of the light glowing from the floor and fanning in little bits in the back is exactly where Darius and Nigel really gave each other opportunities to generate so much excitement out of these openings, where basically everything comes alive. Light actually comes alive in the metal everywhere you look.
I love Brad Dourif. I was a fan, and I remember all my life. I will remember the test with Brad Dourif. It was perfect. And I saw a lot of actors for the Wayne, the bad guy, and I saw a lot of actors. It was a pleasure because I made some tests with them, and it was only because the studio didn't want to pay a lot for the main bad character. And I remember I proposed to the studio, it was a good idea to have a woman for the bad guy. It was a good idea, but at the end, The marketing service said no, definitely no, because you have two women on this film, two heroes, but women, and not a third one, definitely.
Yeah, too many women.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm all right.
Now try this.
I remember something about these signs. This is the psychological tests on Ripley. And I know Jean-Pierre had something very specific in mind in terms of the sort of primitive drawings of apples and pears and cows and cherries and things like that. And he went through an amazing amount of artists trying to get primitive-looking drawings of fruits and little tidbits. And it turned into such an assignment. He couldn't find anybody who actually could nail that style, which I think had something to do with something he's seen as a child. Very basic, primitive illustrations, which actually come back in this film, Amélie. We sort of get a sense of that very naive, childlike graphic thing, which seems to come out of a children's book, which I think is a really big deal in Jean-Pierre's imagery.
I love Danedaya. I love the Coen Brothers movies. And you remember he played in Blood Simple, the first movie of the Coen Brothers.
Some interesting casting choices. I always wondered if Jean-Pierre would have picked this actor, Dan Hedaya, had Jean-Pierre actually grown up in America and seen something like Cheers, you know?
I love this scene in terms of lighting.
Yeah, you had a lot of lights coming up from the floor.
Yes, yeah, exactly. We used an optical process, and the Fox Studio was very nice with me because they made all the prints in the world with the process, and it was very expensive. And they made maybe 3,000 prints with the process. The name of the process is ENR. It was invited by Storaro, the Italian DP.
You're not thinking termination.
Oh boy, am I thinking termination.
General, we do not perceive this to be a problem.
Ellen Ripley died trying to wipe this species out. For all intents and purposes, she succeeded. I'm not anxious to see her taking up her own...
This is an idea of myself. A stupid idea, you know, to open the door. But I am pretty proud about this stupid humor.
Jean-Pierre loves little gags and little tidbits of funny ideas, and I think he dropped quite a lot of them. This was definitely one of his.
Bottom line is, she looks at me funny one time...
And we are going to discover the Queen. And for the Queen, I remember we didn't build the Queen. We used the old Queen from the second one, the second film.
Oh, really?
And we had to find it. It was a fan kept it, the Queen, in a garage. And we had to bring it to use it.
We had borrowed it from Bob Burns. Jim Cameron had given it to Bob Burns, who's a famous movie memorabilia collector. And Bob was gracious enough to loan it back to Fox. And we repainted it, put some iridescence and interesting colors going on in it, and rebuilt it and refurbished it for him. But thank God for Bob Burns. It really saved the day.
I love this shot. And I love the sound. The sound effects are amazing. Leslie Schatz made the sound of the aliens with sounds of monkeys and lions and something like this.
And pigs?
And pigs.
It really saved the day.
I love this shot. And I love the sound. The sound effects are amazing. Leslie Schatz made the sound of the aliens with sounds of monkeys and lions and something like this.
And pigs?
And pigs, maybe, yeah. All the crew was French, almost.
Well, it was a French film.
Yeah, it was a French film.
Made with American money, but
absolutely. Everybody spoke English except me.
I remember your main worry on the film was not to understand every word, what the actor was saying, actually. You were very preoccupied by that, to be sure that...
Yeah.
Well, you were quite happy the first time you saw the film with subtitles.
Yeah, when I see it in DVD, at the end I understood the story, and I thought, oh, it's pretty good. It's a joke, but you remember, Hervé, sometimes I ask you, what does he say? At the editing.
I think that whole kitchen set, if I'm not mistaken, at some point doubles as a basketball court. So in the tradition of good English movies, basically a lot of stuff is being reutilized, which is a terrific way to expand your sets.
I used, like all my film, very short lens. I love the short lens. And I love to put the camera very close to the floor. Sigourney is a great actress. I remember when I met her for the first time, I did a stupid suggestion. Maybe you could act like this. And she looked at me and she said, "No, Jean-Pierre, I'm going to act like this." And she showed me. And I thought, okay, I have to follow her. And at this time, all the time I modified the script to help her. And it was a good relationship. She helped me all along the shooting. Obviously, she knows Aleean by heart. She knows Ripley by heart because she made the 4, you know.
How do you feel about it?
I saw G.A. Freeman, this guy, in a Coen brother movie too. I think he was in Miller Crossing. Yeah.
It goes way beyond urban pacification.
Before the shooting, we made together a reading, yeah. And it was the best lesson in my life. It was so professional. I would like to have a tape today of the reading. It was perfect.
The thing about this film, which I found staggering, is that the premise, and I'm not even sure the point of it is, but the premise is that this is like 200 years after we've last seen Ripley. And my question initially to Jean-Pierre was, should we be concerned about showing that we've actually moved forward 200 years since the last time we've seen Aleean? And his answer was no.
The Betties was so all this miniature was created by Nigel Phelps, and the funny thing is the Auriga, the big ship, was supposed to be the first drawing he made was vertical.
200 years since the last time we've seen Aleean, and his answer was no.
The Betties was so all this miniature was created by Nigel Phelps, and the funny thing is the Auriga, the big ship, was supposed to be the first drawing he made was vertical, and because of the format of the movie, it was very complicated to shoot. So Jean-Pierre asked Nigel to redesign completely the ship to make it horizontal, then it could fit in the CinemaScope screen.
See at the side of a woman all strapped up in a chair like that, just.
I'm Ron Perlman. I played Johnner. I called him Johnner.
I'm Leland Orser, and I play Pervis.
I always wondered how he did that with his voice, didn't you?
Michael?
Michael Wincott. Does that in every picture.
Good actor, though.
Yeah.
Very good actor.
How about a cup of coffee?
Anything else while your mouth's warm, I mean.
Little milk?
Hey, don't cut thrust till about 600 meters, and we'll give him a little scare. Breeze! Call. About down, we're gonna dock.
There's Dominique.
There he is.
Amazing actor. Grew up in Georgia, as a matter of fact.
Soviet?
No, as in southern United States, Georgia. There he is.
Hey, Cole. Yeah? What has 2 thumbs, 1 eye, a pink tongue, and screws like a god?
What?
Two thumbs, 1 eye, a pink tongue, and screws like a god? What?
Time to enjoy some of the General's hospitality, Christy. Great. Army food. Yeah. Doodle, we get the family wagon up to spec, I reckon. Yeah. That is if the natives are friendly. How's that?
This bit about the gun was actually taxi driver guns, we called them. They were more or less inspired by Robert De Niro's wonderful Taxi Driver shootout, where he's actually got a device like that.
Dominic Pinault plays in all my films, and for me is perfect actor. He's so inventive, so nice, so perfect, and it was amazing for me to bring this actor in stage because Sigourney Weaver and the studio asked me to have Dominic Pinault.
Jonah, you son of a bitch!
I told this story a lot of times, Dominic, but it's true. I didn't hire you. The studio wanted to work with you. And I was very happy, obviously. But I remember when Sigourney wanted to call you by phone, and we called you in Paris, and you didn't believe me. You said, no, it's a joke.
I remember very well that call, actually.
I remember the studio, they were a little bit worried about Ron Perlman. They appreciated the guy, but they weren't sure it was the right guy for the character. And by luck, it was the first day of shooting, and they saw the dailies. They came to see me on the stage, and they told me, you're right, he's perfect.
Don't push me, Cole. The set is basically what we call the Betty cargo bay, which is just a lovely, beautiful industrial piece of design. All the rust in the back of it. It's hard to convey just how incredible it was in real life when you walk through it. It was just absolutely staggeringly detailed and gorgeous.
And Pitoff, none of the ships were digital. That's all models, right?
Yeah, it was the idea of Nigel.
All the rust in the back of it. It's hard to convey just how incredible it was in real life when you walk through it. It was just absolutely staggeringly detailed and gorgeous.
And Pitoff, none of the ships were digital. That's all models, right?
Yeah, it was the idea of Nigel. I would like to make some more digital stuff with the model, but Nigel really wanted to have the real miniature to get the texture, and I guess he was right because...
they're beautiful.
Yes, very beautiful.
They really are gorgeous. Is that background digital, or was that a model also?
The background is a mix.
Model also.
The background is a mix with the digital and models. Of course, we had a model, but the size have been enhanced in post-production. And also it's a lot of layers of smoke and of a lot of things to make the texture real. So it's not just shooting the miniature as it is. There's a lot of work after that to have the texture, to give the smoke, to give the depth and all these things.
Do you feel that shooting miniatures is more time-consuming than doing it digitally?
It was more efficient to shoot miniature because the technology of CG was not as flexible as today.
The whole idea about this film is that these guys are basically a bunch of hoodlums that are smuggling weapons on board a military ship. And the thought was they're going to get strip searched and they have to have weapons at some point. So Jean-Pierre's take was that the only way you could bring weapons is by hiding him in plain sight. And the two places where he thought you could hide them was a thermos, which somebody is carrying, which turns out to be a gun, and the wheelchair. So the whole thing about designing the wheelchair was actually designing it as a breakaway piece of technology where every piece could actually reassemble itself into a weapon. And although the idea is really good, actually at some point the focus on that was a bit lost. At some point you see all the characters breaking out weapons. I'm not really sure how clear it is that they're recombining the wheelchair, but that's literally the way the wheelchair was designed, is you could actually take pieces of it apart and snap them into weapons when the scene demanded it at some point. That little wheelchair was built on a structure which we called a mule, which is a sort of six-wheel robot, radio control robot that's designed to lift enormous pieces of equipment in industrial settings, and that mule was available to us. So Fox said, if there's any way you can design the wheelchair around this is great because it'll save us money. So that's what we did.
Oh, I like this shot. This I think it's one of my favorites because it's very, very fucking stupid. And at the beginning, it was supposed to be more complicated, but because of the time consuming, the effect was very simple. We just had the glass with water, and then as
opposed to a container of liquid.
That's the big question. That's a real big question. But anyway, the effect is funnier.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, it was supposed to be more complicated, but because of the time consuming, the effect was very simple. We just had the glass with water, and then the cube, and then to check a little bit the water to have some effect, and it's just a quick morphing in post. So it's a very efficient effect. I love this one.
And I remember the story about the lemons. Danedaya found this idea during the rehearsals, and it was a good idea, but he had to eat lemons all the day, and at the end of the day, believe me, he was sick, because he ate maybe 5-6 lemons to match the shots.
I was under the impression.
Well, I think of Michael Wincott, who had to smoke all day long.
Yeah, but it's not a problem for him.
Me? Yeah. Oh, 2 days, bed and board. Race might want to snag a part here or there, whatever. I mean, if it's not imposing.
I don't see any problem. Couple of conditions, though.
Conditions.
Not you.
The bills that have just appeared on the table are also something that was concocted by the art department. I think Bill Bowes might have done that. Sort of an inside joke, but actually the face of our producer, Bill Badolato Sr., appears on those bills. I think we all ended up with money, fake money, at the end. It was like a gift from the art department or something. I must have a bill somewhere.
No fights.
Mi casa es su casa.
Department or something. I must have a bill somewhere.
No fights.
Mi casa es su casa.
For this shot, the previous one, we used a 10 millimeters to get the deep of the spaceship, because it was very very close to the lens, and it works pretty good. At the beginning with Nigel Phelps, we wanted to build huge corridors, a lot of different corridors, and obviously it was expensive. At the end, we had only 2 corridors to make all the movie, and it works because we changed the light, we changed some details.
Yeah, but that was really surprising when you came to the set and saw it.
Yeah,
it was
I
really
was very
weird.
worried because sometimes I saw the dailies, and with the 10 millimeters, it looks very big, huge. And when I came back the one day after the morning, and I said, but it's not the corridor I saw yesterday. It's too small. It won't work with the audience. Pitoff made this shot with the second unit. Pitoff, he was a special effects supervisor for Delicatessen and the City of Lost Children, and now he's the director. And at the beginning, he made the shot just for the small things, the creature, and little by little, day by day, he began to make some big scenes.
Remember Jean-Pierre said to us that he thought that the eggs in Aliens, I think it was, which we worked on, were kind of lifeless, sort of mechanical. So we said, okay. So we put all this squirming stuff and bladders in the petals and the lips of the petals, and so there's lots of organic movement in the lips there, and inflated bladders on the inside, and
a lot of layers of silicone too, especially on the inside, to give you the feeling of all the different gelatinous layers of this inner egg before we could see the face hugger bits being sucked down.
I was very ashamed, Pitoff, this day, because I had told you that we were going to put a face hugger tail in there.
Yeah.
And somehow it didn't get packed with everything. And at the last minute I discovered it, and you said, "Where is the tail?" And I went, it's in Chatsworth.
Yes, I remember that.
You do remember that?
Yeah, I do.
I let you down.
Sigourney Weaver, was so proud to do everything herself. She wanted absolutely to put the ball inside the basketball without special effects. And I was very worried about that, because I thought, okay, we are going to make maybe 200 takes. And I said, Sigourney, okay, we won't use the machine, but please work with your trailer because I don't want to spend a lot of time. And she was so upset about that. She wanted to do so herself. She did that. And it was amazing. You will see Ron Perlman. No, you won't see it because
because I had to cut before. But I mean,
Yeah.
the close-up of Ron just after the basket is just incredible. I mean, I used it until the last possible frame because the
Exactly.
frame afterwards,
Because
he
he
was
turned
just
his
so
head.
astonished.
Yeah. I love this shot because it's so a simple effect. You imagine the ball is on the head at the beginning of the shot. We do just a pan and it works. I remember Sigourney Weaver didn't believe me. She told me, Jean-Pierre, it doesn't work. It's so silly. It's so weird. And I said, believe me, I am sure. But in fact, I was pretty worried about this shot. And it works.
Hey, there's a shot coming up here that you could claim, Pitoff, except as a digital shot, except it's real, isn't it?
Yeah,
when she throws that ball.
Yeah, it's amazing because this shot was supposed to be digital, of course, because what Jean-Pierre wanted is to make an impossible throw, and Sigourney did it for real. This shot is real.
Look at that.
It's incredible.
How many takes?
I think it was the 6 takes.
6 takes.
Yeah, and it's amazing because I was, of course, here when we shot that, and I feel in her eyes that something was weird, and she made it.
Wow.
And I have a little problem with Sigourney because, the ball is going out of the frame and then back in the frame. And I said, Sigourney, okay, I'll fix that and I'll make a perfect path. So you feel really the impression that the ball is always in the frame, like this ass. And
that's a silicone butt that we made.
That's my favorite shot. I love this part of the film. And tell the story of this shot, Hervé.
That's one of the famous Jean-Pierre Jeunet's favorite scenes where somebody is putting polish on his shoes. And when I got the rashes, I said to Jean-Pierre, well, you remember you did already that scene before, and you just didn't realize it. You didn't remember.
Exactly.
The design of the wheels on this, something Eric Allard had developed, I think, way back, like right after Short Circuit. Each wheel, instead of treads, they had like ball bearings that would roll independently so it could turn and maneuver. I think he had it patented, and I think NASA was using the design as well.
This is another stupid idea because when you arrive in States, the first thing you see is the TV because you don't sleep at the hotel because of jet lag. And what do you see on TV? This kind of show.
So this miniature was not very big. This was pretty small, 3 meters diameter.
That's 9 feet.
9
to you
feet.
non-metric folk.
Yes. Okay.
And what about this? This you guys composited aliens
Yeah,
into that.
exactly. So that's miniature and green screen, and it's a very composite shot with a lot of passes to have the light and the texture and the depth and the atmosphere.
For the alien, obviously, it's men in suit, and it's very difficult to shoot an alien with a man inside because it looks like a man inside. You are obliged to shoot very close.
There's Tom Woodruff, lead alien.
Here's Tom, yeah.
You were talking earlier about being on the set, and here's the deal for me. Being on set in these suits, it's even more claustrophobic than being on set because I've got some slots for my eyes and breathing, but there's no real interaction between what I'm doing and anybody else on set in terms of talking or just getting a break. It's like I can interact with the actors and they can respond during the course of the action, but then once the shot is over, it's just like total isolation.
Yeah, but people love you when you're in the suit.
Brad Dourif was great in this scene. I think it was creepier for me being on my side of the glass than it was for him being on his side watching me.
I like Brad Dourif in this film.
Yeah, he's twisted.
Wonderfully imaginative actor. Brad and that creature were dating for a few months right after they completed the scene.
I love what Darius did. Again, the slime. He really put a lot of care into shooting these and designing the lighting. He, at times, would almost build a cage of fluorescence around the alien so that you'd get a million little kicks off of the slime. And he kept coming back to us and asking for thicker slime because the stuff we had used in the other movies was too runny for him. He wanted like a quarter-inch buildup, so we started going to a slime that was almost like gel, and it really had a different look.
It was a pleasure to work with Winona Ryder. Everything is so easy for her. I remember sometime I tried to direct her, and she told me, Jean-Pierre, take it easy. I have a lot of imagination. I'm going to give you some improvisation. And remember, at the editing room, everything worked all the time.
The whole thing about this scene, I think, was that Winona was feigning drunkenness so she could actually kind of slip out. Since she's a robot, obviously, she can't be drunk.
Oh, this is a nice shot with the 10 millimeters. It was a very short corridor, and it looks so huge. And this is a matte painting from a French guy, Jean-Marie Vives. He worked on Delicatessen in the City of Lost Children too.
It's fascinating how there's a sort of hint of City of Lost Children in the look of the sets. That's what I love about style, is when ultimately it just permeates everything that somebody does.
That's a clever idea. That's got to be Jean-Pierre.
Yeah,
right?
that's very Jean-Pierre, sir.
It's great.
This set is pretty high, and we used it again at the end of the film in the chapel. The same set, but horizontal.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
When Jean-Pierre started the movie, he spoke virtually no English. He always had an interpreter with him, and by the end, spoke better English than me.
Than I.
You see? That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's amazing because, yes, he didn't speak a word of English when he started.
Well,
Sigourney Weaver loves to have the director very close to her. She hates when the director is very far away behind the video. It was a very good relationship because I remember after a take, she looked at me and it wasn't necessary to speak. Just one look and we knew if the take was perfect or not. It wasn't necessary to speak about the take, just a look.
It's interesting because this is a scene that's almost vaguely erotic between Ripley and Call. Well, two females discovering each other inside of that tube.
I can make it all stop. The pain, this nightmare, that's all I can offer you.
I remember I had to fight against the studio to get the smoke on the knife because it wasn't on the budget.
So here, same thing. There's no trick, so it's for real. So Sigourney gets through the hand. No, it's of course it's a cheat. And the blade is on one side it's a retractable blade, and on the other side it's a real one. I mean a real CG blade. So we CG the second part of the blade.
And the smoke is CGI?
And the smoke is CGI too.
A lot of times those little effects like that are
nice.
the most, the ones that have the most effect.
Yeah, because it seems to be normal. Because, of course, it would be possible to have a fake hand with a real knife.
They talked to us about that, and it just seemed that it was impractical and too costly because to give the hand enough life so it didn't look like an artificial hand was a lot of work.
Yeah, and to make it move and stuff.
Yeah,
and,
too limiting in your shot. No, that was a great approach.
Yeah, and it was very simple to make. On the shooting, it didn't take a longer time than just to play it. So it was very cost-effective.
You gotta help me stop this.
Tom, didn't you get together with Sigourney about what the style of some of her movement should be? As the alien, she consulted
yeah,
with.
right. Because of her alien heritage now as a clone, we talked a little bit about just movements that she saw me doing in the alien suit, and we tried to find a way to integrate some of those into her performance. And there's some of it coming up later in the movie where she's swimming. There was some movements we worked out, and also when she escapes from her cell here, there's an element where we were trying to figure out, what is it about the alien when it's retreating that's the most noticeable feature, and obviously it's the tail, and without a tail, we just ended up doing something where she was trying to use her leg, sort of kick her leg out as she's moving into the chamber and escaping her from her cell.
And at the beginning, on the pre-production, I did some research for Jean-Pierre on animals, and so to find out the way for the alien to move and to find a halfway between feline and insects.
Mm-hmm.
So we did a lot of research on footage to have an idea of this hybrid between a feline and insect. It was kind of cool.
Where's the other one?
I met Ron Perlman in The City of Lost Children. He played one, and I love him. I can't wait to work with him again.
So actually, I mean, this isn't a very modest thing to say, but I like the way the guns look for the most part in the film. Jean-Pierre's idea was that he'd seen the guns get bigger and bigger, especially in the second film. And he thought it can get quite absurd if we go too far, so it'd be a nice idea to actually shrink the sizes again and have guns that are more about efficiency. I think he wanted guns that kind of snapped when they fired. He wanted to feel and hear every bullet as it ricocheted and hit the floor. He wanted something that was a bit more credible than the sort of giant Rambo guns. So we designed with that in mind. He wanted something that felt very, very basic.
This idea about the bullet on the roof, it's a little bit later. It was an idea from the first version of The City of Lost Children. We didn't use it.
I don't remember.
In fact, it was a pool player, very good pool player, and he used a gun to kill the people shooting on the roof, exactly like this. And I used this idea on this film.
Yeah, but you didn't shoot it. You didn't shoot it on the City
No,
of...
it
right,
was on the first
that's
draft.
why I didn't know.
On the first draft.
Suddenly, I thought that was becoming crazy.
Security! There is a serious...
The weapons were based on existing weapons, actually. I remember leafing through encyclopedias of guns, which were given to me by Steve Cooper, art director. I guess initially somebody thought, we're going to get around to the weapons. When I actually jumped off the storyboards onto the weapons, it's because panic was setting in and people were talking about how much we needed to really get them going. So Steve Cooper just brought in all these volumes of books on handguns, rifles, whatnot. And I actually started doing little sketches one afternoon. I think I did one page with about 8 or 9 guns. And I think out of that one page, actually, almost everything came out. We showed them to Nigel, and he said, why don't you expand this one and that one? And then we started really kind of detailing them and then finding ways to stick them into the wheelchair wherever possible.
And this was great because in these scenes, Tom would always play the hero Aleean. They had Mark Vignello in one of the other suits, and
David Pryor.
David Pryor was in another one, but Jean-Pierre really wanted to keep Tom as the main performer. That was that torso we made with all the guts and that's pretty self-explanatory, isn't it? This was a neat effect. This was a pre-rigged floor with a sort of like an elevator that would lower all the guts and so on and appear as if the thing was melting, but it was a really simple little rig. See, they never learn in these movies, do they?
Sometimes I was a little bit worried about the humor. For example, for this shot, I asked me if it works or not, and it was a big release during the first test screening because everybody laughed, in fact.
It's actually too bad that Brad Dourif has to disappear so quickly. I would have loved to have seen him go on for the rest of the film, actually.
More than dangerous. If those things get loose, it's gonna make the Lacerda plague look like a fucking square dance.
Shut up! Listen.
This one I love.
Oh.
With the hair on the shoulders, it's great.
I asked him to take his t-shirt over, but he didn't want. Another scene from Pitoff. In fact, he made everything.
Yeah, he made one scene with me.
Yeah, exactly.
Later on.
Oh, this guy was great. As the Flash frozen soldier.
We were lucky this guy was so big because we could hide his arm behind his back when we added the artificial extensions to his limb. so his hand could break off.
And this was breakaway pieces. Garth Winkles did a lot of design work on this, and I think Steve Kujla as well.
I remember I asked the studio about the violence, and they told me no problem with the violence, because for this kind of movie, the teenager wants violence. They want to have gory shots and this kind of stuff.
I remember that chair was pretty dangerous because it was a real chair, very heavy. And so it was either controlled by me or in certain shots remote controlled by a guy, because it would have been very dangerous if I controlled it in certain shots just with one finger.
Remember, Dan Hedaya was going to get it. There was going to be a blood splatter on the wall or window, and he was going to get sucked through the window.
Mm-hmm.
And we developed a whole series of makeups for him. But I think Jean-Pierre decided that the death was too spectacular for a secondary character, so he gave it that death to the newborn.
Evacuation. Your attention, please.
Sylvain Després, a French guy, he works a lot with Ridley Scott, design his chair. And I love the idea with the weapons hidden on the chair.
These were tough shots, too, to be able to show enough of the aliens so you knew what we were looking at but not give it away, because the problem with the alien suit is that if you show too much of it, it's very clearly a guy in a rubber suit. But for some of these wider shots, it was done very effectively, where you just see the shadow. It was a matter of working with the lighting so it wasn't revealing the body, but only the shadow across the grid.
And as an actor, I haven't seen often the monster on set, actually. Remember, Jean-Pierre?
Mm-hmm. And I remember we changed the sense of the scene during the editing. He was supposed to listen or to see an alien, and we put some different sound to explain the aliens are escaping from the cell.
That's true.
Yeah. In general, I don't like to do that, because an actor plays something, and if you change the sense, it's not completely good. But sometimes
no, but that was good
helps.
because it added to the pressure he had to face. You know, knowing that the complete ship was coming under the aliens' control.
Another stupid idea. I
That's
love
a nice shot.
It's a steady
That's a
cam.
beautiful shot.
We speed the picture. And Pitoff put some flames from the guns because the guns didn't work. Never. The actors had to pretend to shoot. It was pretty
it
weird
was a bit breakable as well.
So this shot also is a composite shot with bad paintings and real stuff.
Oh yeah, there's the first digital alien, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's Blue Sky, right?
Yes, it's coming from Blue Sky.
This is a nice shot.
Yes, and also this grenade is digital also. It was the VIFX and another company. This is full digital.
The guy who did this explosion, he made the explosion of Star Wars. He was a specialist of the explosion of miniature. He was so good. He has a book, and you can choose the
color.
Yeah, exactly.
You choose everything.
So there is a story about the death of General Pervis, because at the beginning it was a big deal. He was sucked by a hole on the spaceship. And in fact, I kept the idea for the ending with the newborn, with the new alien. And I proposed to the studio a very cheap death for General Pervis. And I love this scene, but the studio didn't like it. And they wanted to cut it. And by luck, I proposed to Tom Rothman, I said something. I said, okay, you have to ask the audience for the next test screening. And it was in Las Vegas, if you remember.
Oh, yes, I remember.
By luck, the audience loved this scene on this screening, and they saved my life. They saved this scene, and we kept it because the audience is right.
And the shot was quite funny. Afterwards, we cut it here, but afterwards he was keeping on looking at his brain and then fainting in a very, very humorous way.
Yeah.
That was very nice.
It's a little bit
too funny.
It's
That's
a
why
little
we
bit too
couldn't.
funny. But I love that. I
it was
remember
nice,
Sigourney didn't like it too.
It was so
I
funny.
can't avoid humor because I love so much too. It was a new challenge to put humor in an Alien movie. I was a little bit worried about that, but you know.
Yeah, because you can't keep on straight
exactly
action.
And
the
it's
fourth
part
one.
of life,
This
even in
is-
space.
This is a traditional scene in an Alien movie. I remember I thought about the first one when Harry Dean Stanton is looking for the cat, and I wanted to find this kind of spirit and this kind of stupid surprise. It works all the time.
All the
It's
time.
very easy. I am a little bit ashamed about this idea, but it works.
Well, you did it another time when the newborn suddenly appears behind.
Exactly.
I don't remember whose shoulder. Winona.
I remember it was a little bit longer.
This one was longer. We had an additional hall.
Exactly, an additional hall, and that's the reason you can see something strange on the hall because
You can see something strange because he's grabbed by the feet by the alien through a hole which doesn't exist here. And he had to walk for an additional 10 meters or something to get there.
And it was too long.
But that was one of the remark we had from the first screening, the first test screening.
They made, if I remember, something like 100 remarks, and I remember sometimes we modified, but we were pretty upset, and sometimes
We were very upset.
Yeah,
at
and
first.
sometimes we said,
Lit, basically. You could have taken a home movie and it just looked like $1 million.
Which were asked. We realized that each time it was somewhere where, well, we thought it could go like that. And, you know, in the time we had for doing it, we thought it was okay. But as we could have more time, I mean, that was, most of the notes, we found an answer. We never really followed the propositions we had, but we found a creative answer to the question asked. And I think that's what the studio was waiting for us.
Yeah. But it was a good lesson for me.
It was
and for
great.
us. Yeah.
It was great.
A good
You know
lesson.
that since that time, I always for each film I'm cutting, I'm organizing previews, which is not in the French tradition. Let's
For
say.
Amélie, we did some test screening, and in fact, I copied the answer from Hollywood.
I mean, that's
but
a good question.
The big difference is I have the final cut. I can show it.
And the difference is on the use you do from the answers.
Yeah, exactly.
But we don't have to complain.
I love this idea.
This is a simple shot that was hard. I just remember that head was so long and so heavy, and trying to keep it smooth and even, and not drag across Michael's face and make it all the way up to that opening in the chest.
Was it everything you hoped for?
Yeah, you always said that this cut, the final cut, was your cut.
Yeah, exactly.
And we did it with the production notes and.
If the studio would ask me to make director's cut, I would say that's my.
Yeah, that
my
would be a
cut.
problem. Yeah, because
No,
it's.
I have no
we're very
problem
happy
with
with
it.
what
Yeah,
we
exactly.
have.
What if there's more? I say we stay here, man. Let the army get.
I was really thrilled when I watched this scene because Ripley was just carrying my gun. And I can't tell you what a charge that was. It was absolutely great. I was just sitting there one night looking at Sigourney Weaver, and she was harnessing this gun, and I just thought, hey, I designed this. Suddenly I was back to being a kid watching a first Alien movie and thinking about, Ripley running down the corridors and dreaming about what that meant. And, many, many years later, suddenly here I was in Los Angeles, and Sigourney Weaver was playing Ripley, and she was harnessing my gun. It's hard to explain, but it's such a high. This is like traveling through time and grabbing the kid inside of you and saying, here's what you've been missing, here's something for you and for years of frustration or, wishing to sort of make something out of your life that's very specific and the obstacles and all that stuff. And suddenly there's this woman and, she doesn't know I exist and she couldn't care less really, but she's got a prop and it can mean the world to somebody. Nigel Phelps, the production designer, designed chunks of corridors. And this was really the essence of what the set of the Auriga was about. Some chunks of it were actually reusable. The whole idea about the set was that you can make it kind of go on endlessly. There's different layers and levels of the ship. And one of the original ideas, design ideas that Nigel had, which he explored with Darius Khondji, the cinematographer, was that as the story progresses and as the characters travel through the ship, the walls change colors and become more and more ominous. And since Darius uses a very specific lighting technique and processing technique for his film, by which he extracts the blacks and reprints them later to get that very, very crisp, sharp contrast, the idea was that the walls would be painted and the paint job would change as the film progressed. And they actually tested this, and Darius shot plates. We actually experimented with the exposure and etc. So they did collaborate very closely, and a lot of the ideas that one had was quickly integrated by the other. And frequently, Darius would come down to the set as it was being built, and Nigel would explain some of his intentions, and Darius would make suggestions, and they would create opportunities for lighting, basically. And it works extremely well, actually. You could walk through that set, and it was pre-lit, basically. You could have taken a home movie, and it just looked like $1 million. It was unbelievable.
I remember Sigourney laughed at this time because I think I misspelled a word. Instead of saying Eastern Bunny, I said for 2 or 3 takes, Eastern Bunny.
Who are you expecting? Santa Claus?
Thought you were toast for certain, man.
Where's that, Jim?
Funny thing about Jean-Pierre is a lot of directors storyboard, obviously. But what struck me about the way he approaches filmmaking, and this is something he set up right from the beginning, is he storyboards absolutely everything. At the end of the storyboard, Jean-Pierre basically takes a script and binds it into a sort of comic book where all of the dialogue from the script is lined up with every frame. And the storyboard becomes this big document of drawings and text, and that's what he gives everybody. And everybody on the set actually had this document, and that was the script. And I remember in the beginning, Jean-Pierre said, "This storyboard is everything that I need to shoot in order to know that I have my film. If I can't get anything else, these shots represent what I must have in order to be able to cut my film." And this is with the understanding that on top of that are B cameras and pickups, little details of, the cameraman basically picking up whatever he can as a scene is being shot. I find that a bit unique because a lot of directors don't really like to be bound by the storyboard. They do it as a way to think about what they're going to do. And then on the day, they do something entirely different or somewhat different. Whereas I think Jean-Pierre is actually very religious about first boarding and then filming. And it's that simple. He would come to meetings with very, very crude little sketches and say, this is kind of how I see it, this is how I want it broken down. And as storyboard artists, we would just take his little thumbnails and just basically turn them into more solid drawings so that the crew could actually have no trouble seeing what was going on. But basically, he was very determined. He knew pretty much how the scene unfolded, and there were very few corrections. Once he decided this is how I'm going to do the scene, he just did it as such, and that was it. So shot by shot, if you actually take the storyboard of Aleean Resurrection, every take of the picture is something that Jean-Pierre actually intended to do right from the beginning. And I don't ever remember him going over a scene that was storyboarded and saying, let's do it differently.
Ran into these things before.
That's right.
And we are going to arrive to the clones scene. I remember Sigourney told me I accepted this film because this scene, when she looks at the clones. Tom and Alec made a lot of sketches for these clones, and they built it. You can see on the eyes of Sigourney Weaver some small light points on the eyes. And in fact, it was a ring light we used for the beauty of the skin for Sigourney.
Oh, that was beautiful, the effect in the eye.
Yeah, and it's like a special effect. And some people ask me, is it because she's an alien? Is it because she is a little bit like a robot? No, it was just for the beauty of the skin.
So I think this is one of my favorite scenes in this whole movie, is this thing in the med lab, where Ripley goes in and finally discovers what her true origin is, and where the audience discovers it too. And I think the reason I like it is because there's such a... Well, first of all, because we had a lot of creative freedom in coming up with the look of all of these alien clones. And that was a big deal, to be able to go in and design all 7 of these things and have each one be so different. And there was a lot of research that was put into birth defects, as well as all of the alien, the physical alien attributes that we would combine in various ways.
And we really wanted to get a feeling of pathos out of each one of these sculptures, so that you would see sort of the pain and the torture that the evil corporate scientists had put these poor ghastly creations through. And we had some great artists working on these too. Jordu Shell was really key to the designs. Chris Cunningham did conceptual work on it as well. Steve Wang sculpted Steve Koch. Mike Smithson did a great job sculpting as well. Mike Larrabee was painting. I think he painted all these, didn't he? Him and Jim Hogue.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful paint jobs.
And these were all made out of translucent silicone and all these, so many different layers of skin to give them the right levels. And then the set design is just beautiful in this scene too. And also having these things in these tanks of this badly colored liquid it's made the whole thing very cool.
And then, of course, this the number 7 clone, which was great because Sigourney is so willing to stick her neck out and go through the grueling rigors of makeup, and she's okay making herself look bad. And so that's what this was. This was a mechanical body, the silicone skin that was grafted onto Sigourney. She was coming up through a slant board, through a hole in the table, and Tom and I applied the neck makeup along with Linda DeVetta, who's Sigourney's makeup artist. But I really love the breathing mechanism on this in particular.
And the tube of liquids coming out of her body, that was there was some discussion as to whether or not we could get away with that.
Yeah. But look at her, and she sells it so well on both sides of this scene, And then we had to torch the actual one, didn't we? We built a stunt one for the fire gag, but because it was so close in frame, we looked at it with Jean-Pierre, and he said, "I hate to do this. I know you want this for your display room, but it's got to be in the foreground." So we said, "Yep, you're right." And there it went.
That's it. We did get it back.
Yeah. It kind of turned into like a marshmallow or
keep.
something, like a overcooked marshmallow.
But luckily for the rest of this scene, we got to make blow up dummy copies of all of these clones.
Look at her go, though. What impresses me about Sigourney is that look at the emotion there while she's firing a big ass flamethrower. I mean, it's really. She really makes this series, I think. That's beautiful. And then Eric Allard blowing up those containers.
Can you imagine? This is almost 20 years later. She's still playing Ripley.
Yeah, and you have to understand, this is like take after take after day with this emotional commitment. Very, very heavy.
but all the various permutations from where that character started in the Ridley movie to where she sort of journeys leading. This is like the culmination of it all. The future and the present and the past all sort of melding
you see
together. And she just, you're right, she really...
You see sequels, you see people kind of walk through them, and she's, she has a notebook filled with, she keeps herself, up to the moment, connected with her character, for every take, every scene, every day of shooting. It's an amazing thing, especially in a genre like this, in sci-fi. It's not like terms of endearment here.
But as an acting exercise, to play the same character for almost 20 years, as you grow as an individual and you see that same character in so many different situations, in so many different lights, and grappling with technologies and the relationship of where she finds herself with regard to her humanity. It's fascinating, and she is, in this film, her commitment to it is off the chart.
Oh, these were the victims of the chest bursters. We had to come up with a very simple way to do this because of the numbers of them. We sort of took our cue from those T-shirts that came out after Alien and Aliens that just had these rubber bones applied to them. And we made these slip-on appliances that had the broken-out rib cage and all the guts.
We made a male and a female version of the blown-out chest, and I think there were a couple of guys that ended up getting women's torsos on them.
They were lucky.
There he is, ladies and gentlemen. The beautiful and talented Mr. Leland Orser. My friend, and if you knew him, yours.
This is Leland Orser. I love this actor. I saw him in a very small character in Seven of David Fincher. For this scene, I remember I used maybe 4 cameras because I had just one day to shoot this scene.
Yes, I remember.
I hate that because I prefer to shoot with short lens very close to the character, but I had no choice for this scene.
Yeah, I had quite a lot of material for this one.
This is pretty rare. I use many cameras because I prefer to make a storyboard to be very precise. And usually for all my film, I put maybe at the end 1.5 minutes in the garbage, especially with Amélie, the last one. But I remember at the editing room, you didn't have a lot of material. I prefer to shoot exactly what I need. And it's better for everybody because you save money, you save time, you save energy. I don't understand the director. They make some film with 3 hours and you have to cut 1 hour at the end. It's so silly. I prefer to think before. And that's the reason I prefer to make a storyboard, because it's a pretext to find ideas when you have the time to think, because when you are on the set, it's too late. You have to run. The master is the clock. It's too late to find ideas.
Almost everything was designed to be 3, 4, 5 times bigger than what it ends up being in the film. And as budgetary bad news came in, everything shrank. So pretty much every set that was invented for the movie in the script is in, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2. But everything is just a lot smaller than it was ever intended to be.
What's inside me?
No, there's got to be another way.
What if we freeze him? What's in fucking inside me? A parasite!
I love this sentence. It was in the trailer.
I had worked with Darius on City of Lost Children, then he went off and did Seven, which was just spectacular from a cinematographic. How would you say that?
It's a good picture.
Yeah, it was nice to look at. Beautiful film. And then he came and did this with Jean-Pierre again.
And that's why you were in Aleean, because you did City of Lost Children with Jean-Pierre, correct?
Yeah, probably.
And I worked with Darius on Seven.
And you worked with Darius and Seven. You were spectacular in that film, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm the monster's mother.
But that's some hard stuff to have to act, man.
Yeah, that was hard. You know, it's like you have cancer, you have AIDS, you know, you're terminally ill. That's the news you get. That was how I thought of it.
I mean, you got 300 pages of exposition that have been delivered to you inside of 45 seconds, and then you get to react to your imminent death, but go on with the next scene. Not a lot of guys could have done that.
And we approach about the underwater scene. For the next set, the small set, at the beginning with Nigel Phelps, we imagine...
Not a lot of guys could have done that.
And we approach about the underwater scene. For the next set, the small set, at the beginning with Nigel Phelps, we imagine a huge set. At the end, it's a very, very small set, because sometimes when you have not enough money to make a big set, it's better to make exactly the opposite, a very, very small set. And that's the case.
Must be the cooling tanks. Somebody must have opened the valve. The Nazis couldn't have done this, could they?
So this water stuff was supposed to take max how long? Because they had it slotted for, what was it, a week? Was it a week and a half? And it ended up taking twice or 3 times that long.
Yeah, I think it was 2 weeks on the schedule.
For me, this is what the movie was all about, was the water. We met before the movie in swimming pools and learned how to underwater, how to use a hookah and how to scuba. And it seemed like eternity when we were doing this. It seemed like we would never get out of it, and it seemed like we were doing it forever.
This was actually the first thing we shot after we shot all of the underwater stuff.
So this was the last underwater stuff that we shot.
Yeah, this was the last of it, was setting up the sequence that took 2.5, 3 weeks to shoot.
Hey, I heard about those.
And there is a funny story. You will see Kim Flowers, the woman. She's going to dive after the other character. And there is a reason. I had to find an ID because the first day of the shooting, Sigourney wasn't happy about her costume. And she saw the costume of Kim Flowers and she said, "But that's exactly what I wanted." And I said, "But Sigourney, we show you after the other character." And there is a reason. I had to find an ID because the first day of the shooting, Sigourney wasn't happy about her costume. And she saw the costume of Kim Flowers and she said, "But that's exactly what I wanted." And I said, "But Sigourney, we show you the sketches and you refused this costume." And she said, no, I didn't understand. I want this costume. And in one day we had to build another costume for Sigourney. But this day we had to shoot with Kim Flowers. Obviously she had no costume at this time. We had to invite another costume for her. And I had to find another ID to justify she was late because she is not on the next shot. Because we had to build a costume this day. You know this kind of story?
And the water was very warm. And I remember when we first got into the water, it was too transparent. They had to pour in milk and garbage in order for the camera to pick up the actual substance of water, for the light to hit it and give it texture. And we were virtually blind under here. You would swim towards a light, that was it. You could not identify a single object underwater. And I think they put flares down on the ground for us to see. I don't know if you'll never get a shot of them, but... So, acting like you can see something when you can't see something.
That's great. Was that a practical?
Yes, practical.
We built some wax aliens to blow up for that moment just when they blow up.
So everything, the explosion is practical and the bubbles are real. Everything is really here.
And Tom was in this underwater in the suit as well for a couple of shots. That's a beautiful shot.
How deep was it? 15 feet? In a closed set. You couldn't swim to the surface if you wanted to.
Well, the really difficult thing about the sequence was that the rehearsals you performed with a mask on and breathing from a breathing apparatus, and they were all calm, and you were just basically marking what you were going to do in that particular shot. You know, you were going to swim from here to here. This was your action. And when they were satisfied with the fact that everybody knew what it was they were supposed to do, there's a countdown from 6 where you're asked to take 6 deep pulls of the oxygen. And when you get to about 2, the mask comes off. Then you're blind.
And the reason the mask comes off then is so that the bubbles disappear, so there's no bubbles in the shot.
And you're holding your breath for as long as it takes for them to slate, and then you start the action.
In post-production, we put some noises, some voices, and we recorded the voices in a swimming pool with pipes, like to put the pressure, to feel the pressure.
This thing we're looking at right here, there was no escape from this. You swam up into that thing. The only way to get out of there was to swim back down and out. Very true. And waiting in the wings, waiting on the side, would be stunt doubles with hookah masks for us to, once the shot was completed, to give you air. When you would do the rehearsal, you could go much longer because it was calm, you were swimming gently. Once you were acting and the energy was up, you used more oxygen and there was much less time to stay under.
Well, virtually every shot in the sequence, you're in jeopardy. So, you know, the stakes are really high. You are operating on pure adrenaline, which is not the case in a calm number-to-number rehearsal. And then you got Jean-Pierre on a microphone screaming, "I want to see bubbles, because the bubbles are making it look like you are afraid."
Yeah.
So the bubbles are created by you getting rid of your whole store of oxygen, and you're only good for about half of what you were during the rehearsal. Made it difficult. I don't know about you, Leland, but I, for one, ran out of air on 5 separate occasions.
Yes.
And started for the surface. Unfortunately, the surface was a ceiling because this is a kitchen set. So there was no escaping it unless you knew where the escape routes were. And since you're blinded and you're totally disoriented as to where you are at any given time. I mean, I was saved, literally saved 5 separate times by stunt divers who saw me panic, saw me swim for the surface, saw that I wasn't going to make it, followed me, and stuck this thing in my mouth.
Well, we each had one assigned to us, and I just remember the one time that the guy who was assigned to me that day decided to take a bathroom break during one of the takes, and I ran out of air, and there was nobody there. You remember that? And it was your stunt double who gave me, and I shared air with you guys.
Well, he was so used to saving my life that he was just on guard.
So out of the water and up onto the tower, up onto the ladder. From underwater to sparks and steam. After 3 weeks of being underwater, we then ended up...
for another 2.5, 3 weeks on this set.
Yeah.
Climbing the ladder.
High, too. Perilously high.
Very
like
high.
3 stories high.
The stunt people on this film really earned their keep.
Big stunt. Big stunt. For real.
We saw Jaswinona falling in the water, and I just remember staying up there with the stunt. Remember the stunt girl doing that thing? I was very impressed by what she did, because I was at the same height. Oh God, and I saw this little hole there, and I thought you would make it.
Every day we received some sparks from the top, and it was hot, if I remember, right?
Yeah.
Has anyone other than me broached the idea of peeing when we were stuck in that pool for 2 weeks? Did you pee in the water?
It was kind of an honor system, Ron. It was the honor system,
Well,
and I never broke it.
It's 5 years later, and you know.
On the record, I never.
I'm never gonna speak.
I never
to
peed in the pool.
I'm never gonna speak to any of these people again. Come on, come clean. Did you pee? Or didn't you?
I never peed in the pool.
I mean, there were times when we were in there for an hour and a half, 2 hours.
And under our costumes, we had wetsuits.
I mean, I personally didn't pee,
It wasn't that I was uncomfortable peeing in the pool. I was uncomfortable peeing in my own wetsuit, I think.
Oh, so you did pee in the pool?
No.
I mean,
not for the sake of the pool, for the sake of the suit.
That's a little makeup where we had to put Gary into an appliance to show his face all eaten away by acid.
I love his shots.
And remember, you left me a message on the answering machine.
That's my favorite stupid joke.
I love it.
Yeah, it works. It worked a lot on the theater.
Yeah, and everywhere on the audience.
Yeah,
everywhere.
This is actually me doing 180 reverse sit-up, hanging by an iron rung of a ladder, which is about 1/4 of an inch in diameter. Meanwhile, the next day, I went to take a shower, and when I got to washing the back of my legs, I was cut all the way to the bone. There was nothing but blood on my legs. And I just want, if anybody's still watching this film at this point and listening to this commentary, I'd like for each of you to stand up and give me a round of applause.
This alien you can see on the ladder, this alien is in my house in Normandy right now. I am very proud and happy to have this guy in my house. I remember when I moved, the guy opened the box and I said, "You are going to have a big surprise." And he saw a foot of the alien and he said, "Oh, an alien."
This is a really beautiful act by Gary's character, sacrificing himself for Dominique Pinon so that he could be an Amélie. That's the only reason he did that.
That was a rough stunt, too, because we had to drop the dummy first, and the stuntman had to follow it into the water. We had to make sure that it was heavy enough to clear so he wouldn't hit his head going through that opening.
Oh, I remember during the test screening, we had a very, very funny note in a paper. A guy said, the scene I don't like is when Winona Ryder died, because I suppose he was in love with Winona Ryder. But my favorite scene is when Winona Ryder comes back. And another guy said, my favorite scene, explosions. I was very proud to watch the film in Chinese theater for the first time. And I remember some American audience has the habit to buy some popcorns during the screening. And I was shocked. I wanted to say to people, "Hey, you are going to be something. Go back to your seat very quickly, please."
Yeah. Come on, you took it in the chest.
We're just full of surprises here in Aleean Central.
This was an effect that took some convincing, because it was a body piece that she wore that actually built her out several inches. But we knew that from the correct angle that it would have some depth to it. And Jean-Pierre had Sigourney put her hand in it just to help convince, to show that wound had some depth. But if you looked at her from sideways, she'd look like she was pregnant.
This is something Mobius told me a while ago, and I think he's absolutely right. He said, nobody ultimately can object to you doing a really, really beautiful, tight set of drawings. It'll never be used against you. This is not something that anybody will ever blame you for. And I think he's right. I think that if you can, there's every reason in the world to sort of push your work to the furthest extent possible. That's why Jean-Pierre manages to get a frame that looks like this, you know. It's because he's interested in designing to an extent that, where he's not cutting corners, and he's not saying, well, what's the use of this? Why bother lighting it like this? Or why bother getting Darius Khondji to process the light and the grading of the film to this degree so you get this golden image with such beautiful blacks, you know? And there's always somebody who's going to argue against the necessity of making that kind of an effort. But the question is, do you want to listen to them, you know? are these people actually working on your behalf when they're saying it's not necessary? And I think you have to look at the final result. If somebody says putting a lot of preparation into designing frames and composition and boarding a movie, if somebody says that's useless, then look at their films and decide by the look of their picture whether or not you agree.
Burned my modem. We all did.
Oh, you can still patch in manually, you know that.
There's ports in the chapel up there.
Call. You're programmed for that.
Don't make me do this.
Don't make me make you.
I don't want to go in there. It's like my insides are liquid. It's not real.
So for this shot where Ripley has to access the computer through call, we made a fake arm out of silicone, again out of silicone, down to the point where this is the fake arm with the little mole with the little attached tendril to show the opening port, and then it's held up against her against Winona's body so she can slide the probe inside.
When it gets to 270 degrees, take it out of the oven.
Breach in Sector 7, Sector 3. Sector 9, unstable. Engines operating at 41%, 86 minutes until Earth dock.
I wasn't sure about the voice of the robot on the ship, and it works, it's okay.
No, we did a lot of tests for that.
Yeah?
We tried a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the things, that's one of the ticking clocks is Pervis's, my character's, the chest burster. Never knowing when it's going to come out, you know? Sort of added tension.
Ground level recalibrated. New destination 760403, uninhabited quadrant. Braking systems offline, acceleration increase. Time until impact now 43 minutes, 8 seconds.
Try to clear us a path to the Betty. And start her up.
Okay, now it's amazing because the set was not that big, and so it was built like an H with some crossings, and while you change angles and stuff, then you have the impression that it's way bigger than it is. But it's always the same shots.
I love the Betty. It was a cool design. It's very Japanese looking, like an insect or something.
Nigel Phelps made some sketches from the Auriga. It was very interesting, but it was a vertical ship. And at the last moment, I understood it was impossible to shoot in widescreen a vertical ship. And they had to design another ship very quickly. And Sylvain Després, the French guy, made a sketch another kind of Auriga, and it was the one we used.
Father!
Father's dead, asshole.
The story of the alien, the reproduction system, it was pretty difficult to understand. Even
Yes,
for
I'm
us.
not sure
Yeah.
I understood.
I remember we had to do some questions during the test screening to understand the story, even for ourselves. And we modify some details to understand. I'm sure even Joss Whedon is not able to explain everything. Is she the mother of the alien? Is she the lover of the alien? It was both. We played with everything.
How can you stand being what you are?
It's a pleasure to shoot Winona Ryder because she has a sweet skin. She's like a deer. And when you shoot her with short lens, it works without problem because she's so beautiful.
What I was told about the relationship between those two is that Winona is a robot, and she's not fully human. She's almost not human at all. So she's fascinated by humanness, anything involving fear, faith, and sensuality. On the other hand, there's Ripley, who lost her daughter, who is no longer fully human, who's now part monster, part human, and who sees an opportunity to meet halfway with this little girl. And they can together sort of recombine a kind of relationship about whatever is lost. And that's what I was told this was about. They were complementary, if you like. You know, Winona saw in Ripley a sort of human mother, some connection with humanness. And Ripley saw in Winona her daughter.
I tried to save people. It didn't work out. There was this girl.
At the beginning, I thought, okay, they are going to fire me after 1 week, you know. And no, because it's like another movie. After a while, you are inside and you work with friends, with good guys, and it's the same process. Like when I did my first short film, but when I made a short film, we were 5, and for Alien Resurrection, 905 people. But at the end, it's the same thing. And I'm very, very proud because for me, it's my own film now. I am very proud because I did it. It was so heavy, so big. And the inspiration was Giger, and he's very happy about the film, I know, because I met him recently in Paris. And I'm very happy and proud about that.
Because no matter how bad the dreams...
You wonder about what it's like to direct a film in a language that isn't really your mother tongue. And you wonder whether or not somebody fully understands. It's interesting. It's something I've always...
And I'm very happy and proud about that.
Because no matter how bad the dreams...
You wonder about what it's like to direct a film in a language that isn't really your mother tongue. And you wonder whether or not somebody fully understands. It's interesting. It's something I've always... And Ripley saw in Winona her daughter.
Oh no, this is bad, right?
I think we're near the nest.
And you are going to see in a couple of minutes the nest. And it was a kind of homage to Giger, because in the script it was an action scene and I didn't like it. And I prefer to imagine this disgusting nest with tails and parts of alien. And it was really disgusting with lots of slime. And Sigourney loved that, to jump on this very disgusting nest, you know. I love this idea when she catches the tongue.
It hasn't happened yet, but this whole business about getting Ripley away from the rest of the pack. She falls into this ocean of alienness, which I quite like actually, and she's supposed to sink into this like into an ocean, which kind of was a precursor to this whole bit about the end of the film, where they were all floating in alien goo and the aliens kind of swam in it like crocodiles or something.
This shot seems very easy. It was a nightmare because it's a Steadicam and you can't see the crew, you can't see any cables, and you can imagine the nightmare because we turn completely around Sigourney and Winona.
There's what Jean-Pierre called the Viper's Nest, which was this sort of seething mass of alien texture. And we built a 20 by 40 set piece that had articulated pieces worked into it, tails, and I think we had, I don't know if it was Tom or not. Was that you in an alien
Yeah,
suit?
we had me and Mark Miniello in costumes.
Couple of aliens,
and
yeah.
Empty heads laying up there.
And then Sigourney was lowered down through kind of a diaphragm, and she disappeared. We've had people ask, what exactly is that? And we said, well, I don't know. It's kind of like a nest, kind of like a, I don't know, spawning ground. Who knows what it is?
I love these shots. and Sigourney too. I remember the studio wanted to, do you remember, maybe cut one or two of them?
You mean these shots when...
Yeah, and I called Sigourney and she said, okay, if they want to cut this scene, I won't make the promotion. And we kept it. With the music, it's pretty nice.
Kind of romantic though, isn't it?
Yeah.
I made that instead another action scene, and I prefer this kind of poetry. It's pretty weird, pretty strange.
So this is the sort of ominous return to Earth, which is something we've all anticipated for a long time in the Alien saga. And initially, in the first few drafts of the script, the Betty was going to crash back onto Earth. And there were various possibilities. One of them is that the Betty was going to land in some sort of space junkyard, like a desert boneyard, the sort of place where currently you'd see carcasses of airplanes and things like this, except this would have been spaceships. And I mean, some of that was just an opportunity to kind of show futuristic Earth without actually dealing with it. Tell you that where you were, but not actually have to deal with designing futuristic life on the planet, which is kind of barely touched upon in the second Alien movie. And again, you sort of get the feeling that people wanted to get away from that problem. Nobody ever wanted to actually go back to Earth and wonder what it looked like.
Now you can see all the training Ramon did with the army guys, because he really knows how to handle the guns.
This time has come. I love the fact that Pervis becomes the hero. The weakest, meekest little fella.
This, I think, as I recall, was Jean-Pierre's idea. He liked the idea of a guy with a chest burster coming out of it, turning that into a weapon. It's probably the only time when a chest burster comes out in one of these movies that you cheer, because it's it kills the bad guy. So for this, we had to not only deal with the chest burster, but a fake head of Freeman here, who's the guy that just got punched.
And then the shot with the was kind of a complicated one to be able to get inside the mouse.
There he is. Oh, look at that. Oh, it's beautiful. Birth is a lovely thing, isn't it? It's a miracle.
It's a miracle.
Really.
And that's the enemy. I started with the camera in my throat, pulling it out, and then reversed the film.
Oh, is that how they did it?
Yeah.
This whole scene was actually going to be shot upside down. All these cocoon humans were actually upside down above a pool of blood and guts and alien goo that was quite liquid. As we drew closer to the end of the shoot, which is pretty much what happened chronologically, Ripley was supposed to be upside down on the wall and free herself, wound up on the floor. The reason for this is that it became too complicated and too costly to actually turn the set into a liquid set. It would have had to be waterproof, and that cost too much money. But the whole idea is the queen was actually lying in that pool of goo, and all you saw was her belly just stick out of the water, and she gave birth like that. And Ripley fell into the pool, freed herself, and then battled a few aliens. But there are all kinds of logistical problems, including the fact that if the actors were hanging upside down, you would have had to have had swiveling panels on the wall so you could actually relieve them from that position every few minutes. So it's just too costly to build.
When you have some close-up on Sigourney at this time, the set wasn't finished and she had to imagine exactly what's happened in front of her. And I remember we worked exactly like for a silent movie. I spoke with her, and now the newborn moved, and now the queen is going to die. And she listened to me. It was pretty funny to make. And Pitoff made all this scene with the newborn.
So this is the birthing of the newborn, and the the concept, the idea behind the newborn was to show a creature whose genetic makeup had been as affected as Ripley's had been, but in the opposite way. Instead of it being a human that's been tainted by alien DNA, it's an alien that's been tainted by human DNA. And even down to the eyes, the big concept change on this was to show an alien creature that had eyes, because so much has been made of the fact that these things don't have eyes, and there's no real way of telling how they're aware of what's going on around them. But because this thing had been tainted, Jean-Pierre's feeling was that the eyes would be a great way to really kind of lock that whole idea in.
A rather momentous event in the Alien saga.
This was a big day for us. I think we had 30 puppeteers on set to do the Queen and the newborn. And the newborn was completely hydraulic. And I think we had 10 puppeteers on the newborn, and maybe another 10 on the Queen, and then we had another handful inside that egg sac. I think it was 30 puppeteers.
Yeah, I guess it's 40. I can remember, 30 or 40.
Yeah.
And I had 5 cameras, so
Yes.
it was kind of crazy day.
Yes, and Pitoff, you directed most of this stuff. We did some of the stuff with Sigourney, like this over-the-shoulder stuff, but then everything else was broken down into pieces.
And here you told me the story of Sigourney when she acted with gorillas.
Exactly,
right?
because she made a film with gorillas, and she knows you have to avoid to look on the eyes of the beast. That's the reason she looks on the side.
Was that an accident, that little thing? I don't remember if it was something that was directed or that, because sometimes we'd get weird little lurchy movements. I can't remember. Oh, there's that tongue.
Oh, look, beautiful, beautiful little baby.
There was a miniature. We built a miniature version of the newborn as well that we never photographed. Didn't have the time or the money. I think there was a lot of hard choices being made. Jean-Pierre's idea for the newborn was that he wanted it to be like a toddler that was curious and prone to temper tantrums and completely unaware of its own strength.
And like toddlers, eat people's heads.
And I remember at the beginning, we thought about Sigourney inside a cocoon, but when we arrived on the set the morning, she told me, no, it's a mistake. I can't stay in a cocoon. It's a mistake. And we had to improvise something on the stage. It's not easy for a director to change the mind when you have a lot of special effects and this kind of sets. It's pretty difficult. But she was right.
With all these technical words to say in English, which is very difficult for a French actor.
The production designer was Nigel Phelps, and I was very happy to meet him because he was so close to my spirit. I remember when I met him for the first time, he presented me some sketches he did for, I think it was for Batman, and it was so close to the City of Lost Children. It was exactly the same spirit of the harbor of the City of Lost Children, and he was a good friend. We stayed friends. Now, when I came back, each time I come back to LA, I see Nigel and all the crew, and it's pretty rare because, to stay friend when a film is finished. Sometimes you don't see again the people, and it's not the case with this film.
Well, it happens with you. I mean, you're some kind of a family director. You like to work with the same people.
And Hervé, you are the only one who did the 4 film with Dominique.
Dominique, we are tonight the 3 of us
exactly.
who did all 4 films. Yeah.
Ripley's back, man. That it? Nope. You can't fly one of these things too, can you?
It was a very small set. It was pretty difficult to shoot on this set.
The hatch. I closed it.
Goddamn hatch 100 times, man.
So at some point, the newborn was supposed to be digital. And again, for budgetary reasons, it was determined that Jean-Pierre would have to do everything with the newborn as animatronic, which I think was a bit of a problem for him, because initially he wanted to have a real chase. He wanted Ripley to be chased down the halls by this thing.
The beast was so big, the animatronic. It was a nightmare to shoot the scene when he tries to catch Winona Ryder. I remember I had to improvise, to change my mind, and it wasn't an easy time for me. I cheat on this shot because it's like a point of view of the newborn, and it's fake, he's inside.
Window of departure now, 20 seconds.
There's a shot in here that Jean-Pierre told us about, Pitoff. I don't know if you can identify it, but where he said that they had to go back and digitally remove the genitals of the newborn.
Oh, yes.
Because it was, he said, even for a Frenchman, it was too much.
Yes, it was gross.
It was objectionable. The studio had a problem with the genitals on this creature, as I recall. Jean-Pierre wanted this creature to look like a mix of human and alien DNA, a mix between an old and a young person, and male and female, so its genitals reflected the male-female aspect of it, and the studio had us tone them down at one point. It's probably the only digital genital removal shot in history. There's some of the pathos and the sympathy. Jean-Pierre wanted this character to be able to go from looking ferocious to looking sad. That was kind of the fun of this.
Some people didn't like this newborn, and I understand because he's a little bit different than the other alien, but I like the character.
Poor DeStefano's brains get squeezed out. We made a fake head of him and really labored over that splatter that you just saw.
Maybe 2 or 3 years after the shooting, I watched the film one more time, and just at this time I thought, but it's very gory, it's disgusting. You know, because when you make a film, you don't see this kind of stuff. You see just the special effects, but after 3 years, I began to feel how it's disgusting. And you can recognize the gesture of the newborn. It's exactly the same gesture than Ripley at the beginning in the cell when she plays with Winona.
Put it down.
The eyes of the newborn slid in and out.
And now the love scene. On this shot you can see all the newborn. It's the only shot because we erased in post-production the crane.
There he is, taking a couple steps. He was supported by a boom and rod operated. Dave Pinnacus was the mechanical supervisor on this, and Yuri Everson supervised a lot of the construction steps of it as well.
And you know, it's difficult with the because of all the hydraulics involved in making this thing move and having it move so closely to the actress like this, both Winona and Sigourney, that there were a lot of safety concerns that we had in building this thing mechanically and also in the operation of it. We ended up with 2 computers to operate this creature, one at the puppeteering end and one built on board the puppet to continually make sure that all the data that was being fed to the puppet was not able to be misinterpreted and have something move in a completely opposite direction.
And this is where Jean-Pierre really wanted to convey a kind of a confusion and sadness from the creature, where he doesn't understand why he's being sacrificed like this. But we had a variety of puppets here, ranging from our hydraulic character to rod-operated puppets. I think there was maybe 3 different phases of puppet here.
So now this is the ending I found at the end, and you can understand it was the ending for the General Pervis, for Danedaya. And during the shooting I wasn't sure it was working, and now when I see it, I think it's pretty good. Because Tom and Alec had to find some new technology very quickly because we found this idea very late.
And all the stuff coming out of the newborn have been shot in liquid to have this zero gravity impression, and a lot of different things.
Now I thought that was all digital. Those shots, right there.
No, that's real, and it's digitally. It was mixed digitally, but all the elements are elements I shot in a tank to have this zero gravity feeling.
Right.
But a lot of layers together to have the amount of stuff.
USM Auriga will impact in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you.
Could we ever tell what part of the Earth has been destroyed needlessly in this shot?
Where is that supposed to be, Pitoff?
I think it's France.
Yeah. No.
With Detroit, Paris. So all these things is a lot of fire. We shot separately to really have these big flames when we are on the miniature to really have this re-entry impression.
That's nice. Is that shake added afterwards?
Yeah, some more were done with the camera, and we added some more in post-production.
It wasn't easy to find a good ending for this film. The first one from Joss Whedon was very, very expensive on Earth. I know the studio wanted to finish on Earth. It was the first idea, but I knew from the beginning it won't happen because it's too expensive. I prefer from the beginning to finish on the spaceship. I know it was a little bit too close to the second one and the first one too. I think it was more clean to finish like this, more than to have an ending very cheap on Earth. And at the end I prefer this ending. But we wrote maybe 4 or 5 different endings. And I remember I had a crazy idea with a car crash, but with spaceships. It was pretty funny, but one more time, too expensive.
Dominic, I remember I didn't tell you Ron Perlman is going to kiss you.
Yeah.
It was a surprise.
Yeah, it was quite a big surprise. Yes. That my love story with Ron is ending. It was very good.
So this is Earth, huh?
Yeah, so it was supposed to have another ending. When we really started the pre-production, the ending was ending on Earth. And Jean-Pierre was not really happy with the ending. So there's several options for the ending. And at the end, Jean-Pierre shot a studio version with the 2 girls on the Earth and have after landing.
Initially, the Betty was to crash land on Earth, because the whole idea was to actually move the whole alien myth down to a new level and leave a door open, which was Earth, which you sort of get at the end of this one, but it's still very ambiguous. But in that initial script, it wasn't. The whole idea was that you now have landed on Earth by the end, by the last page, and you sort of know where the next film is going to take you. And the green screen shot was actually the last bit of shooting from, the sort of main production schedule. And it was Ripley and Call crash landing, and they come out, and they just sit there, and in the distance is a city, and they haven't gone to it yet, and this is all about Call has never seen the Earth, the sort of main production schedule. And it was Ripley and Call crash landing, and they come out, and they just sit there, and in the distance is a city, and they haven't gone to it yet, and this is all about Call has never seen the Earth because she's a robot. The studio Fox was really keenly amused with the idea that Jean-Pierre was French and that all of his sort of Frenchness could be tapped into. And one of the ideas, for instance, they had at Fox was why not crash land the Betty somewhere near dunes or something where all you see is part of the Eiffel Tower rising out of the sand.
I can tell you something to finish. For the French crew, it was an amazing adventure, and it was the best year of my life. It was so we were living during 1 year. It was a special, a very...
It was an incredible challenge. Incredible challenge. And we did it. It was good.
I think there's a lot of, there's definitely a lot of work in this, isn't there?
Oh, yes, a lot.
I think it holds up pretty well in terms of those visuals.
Yeah, it's very. I'm very happy because it's very Jean-Pierre Jeunet movie. The feeling is very his feeling, and it's great to see a movie which is as well known as Aleean and a saga like Aleean is, and each director can really print his own universe.
Fox has hired a wide range of directors on each of these. Each one has really made it their own. I mean, you were with Jean-Pierre. I mean, you knew Jean-Pierre when he was being offered this. Was that an exciting thing for him, or did he have to consider it?
No, it was really exciting because, you know, for a Frenchman to make an American movie, it's exciting. But then it was very difficult for him because he, in terms of speaking, because he didn't speak a word of English. So that was very complicated. And after a while, then now he's married with an American girl. So he was taught directly by his personal professor.
So now I suppose sometimes he pretends he can't understand English just to...
Yeah, he can pretend, yeah.
Yeah, now that he's married. Was there any issue with you coming over with him? Because obviously you were his trusted effects supervisor. Did anybody ever question that, or did they try to say, well, there's people in Los Angeles that can do this job, or was it just part of his deal?
No, it was quite easy because Jean-Pierre wanted part of his crew, and the visual effects was very important, and the studio was very happy of what we did on City of Lost Children, and they really wanted to have the same type of effects. So it was kind of easy to be there. Mm-hmm. And also at this time, I don't know how it works now, but at this time there's no union for visual effects. So it was easier.
Right.
I don't know if there is any union now for the visual
Not
effects.
for visual effects supervisors.
Okay.
Although I hear it's in the works. So how did you like working with American crews? Be honest.
I'm back.
You're back. Yeah.
I'm back, so I liked it.
Yeah, you liked it. Good. We had a great time with you guys. We really appreciated your sensibilities, and Jean-Pierre was very kind to us. Yeah, I couldn't believe it at the premiere when he thanked us. That was very, very kind of him. I like the one thing with Dominique when the door opened. He said, what does he say? Who are you expecting? Santa Claus? And it's like, didn't he also say
the Eastern Bunny?
The Eastern Bunny? The Easter Bunny. Somebody printed up T-shirts. Who were you expecting? The Eastern Bunny. It's very funny. All right. So it's on to Alien 5.
Ta-da-da.